Hi, Sandra here, the Misophonia therapist. And I thought I would just go right back to basics today, because it did occur to me that if I use the word misophonia, there are still so many people that don't really know what it is, even if they have the condition. So the title of this video is, Do the sound of people eating send you flying into a rage? So have you ever noticed that certain sounds, and in particular the sound of other people eating or breathing or chewing, does it make you feel extremely uncomfortable? Perhaps very anxious or angry or disgusted? And I'm not referring to general noise, nuisance. We all get bothered by noise from time to time. I'm describing an extreme emotional reaction that you have no control over toward normal, everyday, common types of sound that aren't necessarily loud ones. Now, the condition is known as misophonia, of course, and even though it is becoming more widely known about, still people seem to look at me with a slightly mystified look on their face when I tell them that I work with it. Now, when I first began trying to help people who have it, I was just curious about why it seemed to be such a little known about condition, especially for something that does seem to be increasingly more common. And it really did pique my interest, simply because sufferers really do suffer a lot. And I'm curious, of course, about why this happens. Is it a brain malfunction, rewiring issue? Is it a sensory sensitivity problem? Is it an anxiety issue? Does it relate to trauma or a condition, another condition such as ADHD or autism? Now, the truth is that not enough research has been carried out, and I am not qualified to comment on the mechanics of the brain in any way, shape, or form, but I am trained as a clinical hypnotherapist, and based on my own practice and the small-scale research that I carried out into the condition, it's possibly to do with the way that our brains assess risk and threat. And it does tend to be subconscious. That is, you're not always aware that your brain is doing it, let alone being able to control it. And it often does not make sense. Why would you get so angry at the sound of your mother eating? Some of us may, of course, be more susceptible to having the condition, especially if we may have other conditions too, although it is a discrete condition in its own right. We all have this mechanism in our brains that scan the environment for risk and threat, and it's called the amygdala. And for whatever reason, your amygdala, your internal security guard, may be assessing a certain trigger. So, for example, the sound of your mother eating as being dangerous or putting your survival at risk. So your body just becomes prepared to fight or flight. And this is the basis for those feelings of rage, disgust, anger, wanting to run away, wanting to avoid situations where you could be exposed to that trigger. However, it's very unclear as to exactly why this happens and whether anything can be done about it. That's the million-dollar question. Many people with anxiety or anger management problems can learn ways to desensitize their fight or flight response. And I work a lot with this type of thing. However, misophonia is most certainly not the same thing. It's not anxiety or anger in and of itself, as far as we're aware. although it can certainly be aggravated by anxiety, tiredness, general stresses, hormones, particularly in women, women and big in midlife and big life events. There may be a lot going on under the surface psychologically, and I often wonder if people with misophonia are often holding on to a lot of anger, maybe without realizing it. But again, is this the cause? That again is another $1 million question, and I really wish I could answer it. What I do know is that it is generally better to accept that you have the condition rather than to fight it, because fighting it or running away and curtailing yourself in some way through isolation and avoidance will just ramp up those potent neurotransmitters that are associated with fight or flight, the anxiety. And they will possibly lead to more psychological problems just off the back of having misophonia, and very possibly amplify your existing symptoms. There is no known cure for misophonia as we speak, but many people, including the people I help in my practice, do notice themselves moving toward a feeling that life with misophonia is a life worth living rather than not worth living. And yes, I have seen people whose symptoms have improved, which could be in part to improving or reducing that subconscious fight or flight mechanism, as well as making other important changes in their lives. So it's kind of indirect, at least that's the conclusion that I'm drawing from it. So would you rather be happy with misophonia, or rather in spite of misophonia, and learn to adapt or even change your relationship with it? Think of it this way: if your amygdala is amplifying the trigger to warn you of danger, even if it is something so totally not scary logically, like somebody chewing, you will always be triggered. You will continue to be triggered. And this will be compounded the more you obsess over it. If it is just there in the background, not necessarily gone, but maybe you've learned to train your mind to focus on other things, would it be so much of a problem? I do truly believe that misophonia is a manageable condition, and I would love to know your thoughts. And as ever, if you think you might like to jump on a chat with me, or if you think I might be able to help you, do get in touch. Bye for now.